So to me, you can't really turn culture off on and off when you need to. It's something that everybody in your program's got to be bought into, knowing the expectations of, hey, we're going to be 5 minutes early. We're going to be dressed the right way. We're not going to have our phones in the film room. There's a ton of things. I think you got to address it early. You can't let stuff slip, especially with a new team.
Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it.
Today we are joined by the head men's basketball coach at Frank Phillips College, Hunter Jenkins. Coach Jenkins is in his 10th year of coaching overall, 5th as a head coach. He was previously the head coach at Clarendon College and was an assistant or GA at Texas Tech, Buffalo, Odessa Junior College, and Trinity Valley Community College. Coach Jenkins has a career record of 81 wins and 41 losses. His teams have been ranked in the top 25 each of the last 3 seasons. He's been named the Hoop Dirt National Coach of the Week. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at JAMODI Podcast. The JAMODI Podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
What's up, Coach?
How are you doing?
Good, man. How about you?
I'm doing excellent.
Yeah. Tell me what's new with you right now.
Now really recruiting is the main thing.
Yeah. How busy does that make you? Are you going a lot of places? Are you pretty portal heavy? Do you have a good mix?
That's honestly in today's day and age, like with synergy and all that kind of stuff and the portal, like it makes it way easier for a guy like me. Like we don't have the biggest recruiting budget, so
Yeah.
I can watch 100 players today off synergy and got their number pretty easy and really dive in on what we want, what we need pretty easy. Obviously, it's nice to go see somebody in person and meet them before you end up signing them, but just for the narrowing guys down on who you want to recruit, it's pretty easy nowadays with all the video software and everything like that.
How much is your focus on high school players coming out, or is it because of just the amount of bodies in there and the fact that you can stay older and keep guys that have already been in the process a little bit going? Where do you feel your balance there?
Yeah, like you said, balance is probably the best way to put it, because you don't want to bring in 13 guys that want to play. Not necessarily they all want to play, but you don't want to bring 13 guys that are transfers and think they're coming in and going to be a starter. So I think it's good to balance kind of your team chemistry with some high school or even prep school guys are pretty good too, because they may have been a good player in high school, go to prep school. They don't use a year of eligibility, so they get older, but they're still freshmen in terms of college. But I'd like to get probably half of my guys from kind of either returners off my team or portal, and then kind of mix in some younger guys too, so they can develop a little. Obviously, I only have them for 2 years, compared to a 4, but still like to bring in freshmen who are good, kind of fitting roles and kind of having high upside. But it's hard to rely. I had a couple guys this year that were freshmen out of high school, and it's hard to rely on them compared to a guy who's been in college 3 years or 4 years.
Yeah, I would imagine the film is, especially if you're not getting to see him in person that much, the film, like coming from a guy playing in college, way more reliable than, I'm at a small private school. Depending on who we play, guys can look different and the competition can be different. Obviously, somebody like you, and I think most coaches kind of can figure that out or see that pretty quickly. But yeah, I would imagine the college film is, it's easier to bank on that.
Right. And like synergy is really good too, because it breaks everything down. You can go watch all their offensive threes shot, watch their defensive clips. It already you won't have to sit there and watch full game. So if you're getting a transfer from a Division I and he played in 22 games, you get to see a ton of just clips in a short amount of time. So you can kind of watch and say, oh, this guy need to take a deeper dive, and then watch full games after that. It's the best way to
Here's a question that I think might be hard to answer, but it's just one that I've been curious about. When you see guys going into the portal, obviously you hear some of the stories of guys that were at a smaller school, killed it, had great years. I mean, with March Madness and stuff, we're seeing that guy from Oakland, right, that had been at a small, but then he does get to kind of transfer up, go up through the portal and do pretty well. But then you hear a lot about the stories of guys that do leave and, I mean, that don't get a spot or are just stuck in there. Typically from some of the guys that you've been able to experience, like from the portal, what are those reasons that guys are, and that's what I'm saying, it might be tough because could be a bunch of reasons, but why do you see the portal as an avenue that so many guys are using?
I think social media has something to do with a lot of like you can look at your friend and you can see all these other programs and kind of inside and see like, man, the grass might be greener on the other side over there. Man, I went to this school, like it's not what I thought I was going to be. Like I want to just see what else is out there. It's something in today's day and age, just you can see what your friends are doing that went to different schools. But I think in recruiting, like there's only going to be when you the end of the season, there's only going to be 5-6 guys that are happy kind of with their playing.
And that's true. Yeah.
Instead of sticking it out. And to me, it's a double-edged sword too. Like, as a coach, like you may have a guy who's 7-8, in your rotation. You might want to bring him back the next year, but you'd be like, I might can get somebody else better in the portal too. So you might call the kid in, hey, I'd like for you to stay, but it might be better for you to leave too. It might be better for it. It's to me, it's a double. It works for both sides.
That's an interesting perspective right there, because I think so often you almost view it as, golly, these poor coaches. Like what can they? How can they do this? How can they handle all this like uncertainty? But to your point, there may be a side of it that besides just getting the better players, like being able to not just unload guys, but the fill those spots with more like in the past, you might have had to wait for some guys to graduate or just straight up like cut them. But if they're not in that world, where, yeah, we could keep them, or I get that perspective.
Yeah. You can just, if sometimes if you're just looking at what's best for the kid, like, hey, I like you, I want you to be back, but I see your role being the same as it was. We're trying to win again. I still see you being 6-man again. I know you think we're graduating this guy and you're going to start now, but I'm trying to go get somebody in the portal that can replace him versus kind of move you up.
Man, what a whole other world. Yeah, what a whole other world of like another conversation now that needs to be had. It used to be, yeah, we want you back and you're going to fight for this role, or, we don't want you back. And now there's this other conversation of you could, but this might be better for you. Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And I've even heard like some Division I's tell me like a kid will come in, they have their end of year meetings and, hey, coach, I want to just see, I just want to see what's out there, like see if I can get something. And they'll give them a timeline like, hey, I'll give you a week, I'll give you 2 weeks, but I need to know if you're coming back or not, or I'm going to fill your spot. Like you won't have a spot anymore.
Eyes have changed, man. That's nice.
Be able to have, you need to be organized in terms of just having list of guys. Like you may have 3 point guards you think are coming back, and then the season's over and you got to get 3 at that point. So you just got to be able to adapt and find guys and replace guys quick.
All those high school coaches listening that are complaining about having to teach class and do all these things. And I don't know, there's a lot of give and take to, like, obviously there's a lot of fun to what you get to do at that level with those players. But that's some interesting scenarios that you have to go through.
Yes, sir, for sure.
I know you didn't expect to come on here and talk portal the whole time. I actually would like to get to know more about you and your coaching style and your program. So, man, thank you so much for giving up your time.
No, I appreciate you having me. Excited to be here.
Love getting to learn about daily habits of coaches, or really any successful people. What do they do with their time? Because we all get the same amount of seconds every day. So what are some daily habits that set you up for success?
I think being organized is the main thing that really sets you up kind of day to day. I think if you just get up and just kind of go with the flow, you end up missing some things. So like we just talked about a lot before that question is recruiting. So I think just something daily you better do, especially at the college level, is have time set aside to recruit, not just recruit future players. You better be able to spend some time with your current players, and make them want to stay with you. And just kind of compartmentalize your time. Obviously, in season, you're going to be doing kind of different things versus outside of the season. You're going to be game planning for teams and stuff like that. You have team practice, and then outside of the season, obviously, player development type of things. Recruiting's a lot more important, but I think it's important too to organize kind of time with your family, relationship, that type of things, as well as kind of still work out, be healthy, and kind of organize that type of stuff, or you end up missing meals or having to do fast food if you don't keep those.
It's a dangerous path to be on, coach. I've had from experience and know from experience, that's a dangerous path right there.
So I think the best thing as far as being able to get good habits, just be organized and kind of have a plan for your week and a plan for your day. When you get up in the morning, that way you don't go down a rabbit hole and start talking to coaches recruiting for 4 hours, and then you miss this workout with one of your own players, or with meetings with people on campus and stuff like that. I think just sticking to a schedule and being organized really helps you be successful. And some of the coaches that I've been around that have been good are extremely organized.
Especially with recruiting, are you able to turn it off? Like when you get home, completely be there? Or, I mean, and I'm not judging either way. I think there are those coaches that like, listen, 24/7, my phone is on. I am ready. I'm there, available. How do you handle that type of, not burden, obviously not a burden, but responsibility?
Yeah, for me personally, it's 24/7 for me. It's one of my favorite parts of the job, because I know it's really hard to win unless you got good players.
Yeah.
So that's something. Like if I get a text back from a kid or something at 11:30, I might be asleep, stuff like that. But I'll hit them first thing when I get up in the morning. But to me, it's nice. Like if I'm driving, I got to go somewhere. It's 20 minutes away. It's easy to pick up. Hey, I'm going to call this guy on my drive. There's ways to kind of fit it in.
Yeah.
I know a couple other coaches I know, like they might get their exercise in for the day, walking, stuff like that, and have your headphones in, making calls during that. So there's a way to, like, you can knock two or three things out at once. Some other coaches I've worked for, like they'll mix in watching film while they're on the treadmill. So there's ways to do two things at once, in my opinion. But if you're not recruiting kind of 24/7, 365, I think you're missing out on something, whether it's your own players, whether it's future players, whether it's and it's not always calling kids. Sometimes it's calling other coaches in the business, calling people handlers, different things like that. It's not always just calling the kid, pitching them on why they should come to your school, and maybe finding out which kids are going to be hitting the portal. Kids are unhappy here. International stuff changes kind of when you got to talk. They may be a big time change. You might have to wake up at 4 or 5 to have a Zoom, or you might have to wait late to talk to a kid in Australia or something like that. Is always has to do with kind of being 24/7 recruiting as well.
That makes sense. So obviously, like you mentioned, handlers and select basketball. My son's a junior. Like he's in that select world. I mean, I used to coach select basketball. Select ball was big for me in high school, and how I got maybe some exposure to some different schools, especially with just social media and all the platforms out there today. What role do you still see high school coaches playing with that in that recruiting world for their players?
Well, my dad, my uncles are all high school coaches, so I know the importance of high school coaches. To me, the hard part about high school, being able to recruit high school players during their season, it's when our season goes on.
Yeah.
So like we're playing games the same type of week, but just the value of like AAU and some of that type of thing, like it's just you're playing more games than you are practice, and that's something that's very important at really every level is getting kids who know how to practice, getting kids that know how to be in a routine of playing 2-3 games a week, scouting reports. So that's something different versus the AAU, where you're going to go play in a tournament and travel. Your kids may leave this team this weekend and go play with a different team. High school coaches, you got a routine that fits college, or in my opinion, when have it come into practice, doing a weight room, that type of thing is very, very important. And then winning. Obviously, you can win Peach Jam, you can win some of that type of stuff at AAU, but there's nothing like winning a state championship at the high school level.
Yeah, the pressure involved with district games and playoff games. Yeah, it's hard to replicate that in select ball when most likely you know that there's another tournament or another game in a couple hours. I've wanted to always, over the years, I've wanted to feel like I'm doing everything that I can to help my high school, those players that do have aspirations to play, to help them. And sometimes I think you maybe hear or get the feeling from some high school coaches that it's not our job, like, or we're not really in that world or role of helping kids do that anymore. But I don't know. I think there's a balance. It's not either or. I think it's both of us, kind of like you said, but definitely want to feel like I'm not one of those coaches just saying, well, it's up to the kids. It's up to the select coaches in that world. I want to help.
Right. It's kind of like the AAU stuff is in the spring and the summer when we're out of season and we can go to a tournament and you can evaluate and see a lot of kids in a short period of time. That's, I think, the benefit to that type of stuff. And just playing year round is gonna make you better. And some of the AAU circuits, you're gonna get to play against good competition. So you're gonna maybe have some of the top guys on this team play against the top guys on that team. Versus high school, you guys don't get to pick your players and things like that.
Right.
So you may have 2 or 3 players that are good enough for a high major versus mid major JUCO. You may have a mix of guys playing, and then you might play against a team with 2 high level Division II players tonight versus like if you're going to the Adidas or Nike circuit. You're gonna be able to see a lot of good players in one setting one day.
With your habits and being organized, what are some of the best things, especially in the coaching world, that you've borrowed lately?
Honestly, before we got on, I was watching some South Florida Synergy. I think they run some really good 5-out stuff, some Zoom stuff, some kind of 5-out trips and pin downs and stuff. We're out of season now, but I'm definitely going to add some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Stuff to my program next year. Amir Abdur-Rahim does a good job there, so I'm really trying to put in some of the stuff he runs. In terms of just stealing stuff from other coaches, I like to take blobs from a lot of different. We ran one in the in our regional tournament. Somebody was like, "Man, I really like that. Where'd you think of that?" And I stole that from Virginia Tech last week. I was watching them play, and that's most of my stuff, especially based on out of bounds. I'm not thinking of it. I'm stealing it from other coaches, either on Synergy or games I'm watching.
That's a good reminder for us as we're watching, these college games. I think sometimes some of the simplicity of the NBA game, I like to take a few things from there, but just a great reminder to never stop learning, to always try to be getting something that you feel like fits your team. And I would imagine as a college coach, it's way easier to watch some of these other college sets and say, yeah, we can do that because we've got some pieces similar. Grapevine Faith Christian School, I don't always see like it. I watch it play. I'm like, God, it's beautiful. Could that work though for the guys that I have here? I'm not sure, but I get that. I think it's a good reminder.
Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Scoreboard Media. Scoreboard Media works with high schools across the country to run professional sponsorship programs on their LED scoreboards. Whether you already have LED and you just want to supercharge the revenue, or you want to use sponsorship revenue to buy new LED video scoreboards, Scoreboard Media can help. They work with sponsors and advertisers locally, regionally, and nationally who want to connect with your school's community. Email info@scoreboardmedia.com to start the conversation and see what's possible.
You've had the opportunity to work for some incredible coaches. And I'm just kind of looking at the list already, and man, pretty impressive. What are some qualities that you've seen in some of those great leaders?
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons I've been really, really blessed is I've gotten to work for just unbelievable guys. Like Coach May just got the Michigan job. He was at that staff.
Yeah.
Was at Louisiana Tech. All those guys are Division I head coach. Coach White's at Georgia now. Darius Nichols is head coach at Radford. Coach Mitzi's at Jacksonville. So like just getting to spend every day with that staff, and then going over to Texas Tech after that. Coach Beard, Coach Adams, Al Pinkins, Chris Ogden, all those guys, just really, really good at what they do. So they're all different. Like every coach I've worked for is different in terms of what they do day to day, basketball wise, their style of play, everything like that's different. But probably the one thing that they're all the same at is they're all unselfish guys. I think they really care about people that work for them. They're really unselfish with their players. They care about their players. So me being able to become a head coach now, that's the one thing I try to be too with my staff. Like I want to try to help them move on to the Division I level and get their pursue their dreams. And then the same thing with the players. Just really caring for them. I know they want to leave here, get to the Division I level and kind of continue their career. So just being an unselfish leader, I think something that every one of those guys that I've gotten the opportunity to work for have, and something I try to do every day as well.
I love that you mentioned that. And thinking back to an example of, I got to play for Coach Dave Bliss for 3 years. And in one of our first meetings at Baylor, he used his hands and he said, okay, Baylor basketball here, you here. Like he made it a point to show the difference between me. And there's a part of that I get. Like we need to be team first. We need to be program first. We need to be thinking about something bigger than ourselves. There's a part of that that's true. But this unselfish nature that you've picked up from others, and I think that's important because, yes, your team has a path that it's on, but your staff and players have individual paths that they're trying to achieve as well. So I think it's wise. I don't care what level you're at. Instead of saying, listen, it's faith basketball here, and then whatever you want down here, it's your program, and then whatever your staff wants is secondary. No, like both things can be true at the same time. It's your program, but also they have dreams and aspirations, and you being an unselfish leader, celebrating, encouraging that. I think that's a great reminder, man.
Yeah, and they're really kind of intertwined in my opinion. Like if we're winning and doing what we need to do with our program, then assistants are going to go on to get head coaching jobs or higher level opportunities. And then the same thing with the players. If they're doing what they need to help the team win, they're going to in turn kind of get what they need to be, whether that's Division I level, kind of the accolades and things like that come with being a good player on a good team.
How often do you meet with your assistant coaches to talk not necessarily just about your players, but to talk about their aspirations, what they want, besides just the interview process where maybe you figure that out? Because we always talk about check-ins with our players. How often do you do check-ins with your staff?
Well, I talk to my assistants kind of every day. So kind of when I'm interviewing, I want to let them know, hey, I want to help. I know JUCO is for players to come here and try to move on to a good Division I or Division II. I want it to be the kind of the same thing with you. I think if you're hiring good people and you sell them on helping them move on, you're ended up getting good people to help your program win as well. So it's kind of to me, it's a daily thing. Like if I hear about, hey, this job's open here, I think you'd be a good fit for it. Let me know if you need my help with it. I heard about it from this guy. If you want to get in the mix, let me know. I know this guy that can help you. So I think it's something might not come up every day, but this time of year might come up 2, 3, 4 times a week. And back in January, it might not be any.
Yeah.
In terms of the amount of time we bring that kind of stuff up.
I mean, it's interesting because you have a pretty high level of humility about you. I can kind of tell by the way that you talk and describe yourself and your program. But I don't think that that's really a small thing. The fact that you have those impromptu conversations with your guys, and the fact that you have the awareness to see a job that's out there or hear of something and mention it to them. I think it's really easy for head coaches to get severe tunnel vision about what's just happening with their team, about schedule, about everything, the games coming up. And we forget to zoom out and to, like we talked about at the beginning, if there are these two paths that are going on at the same time, we have to give them each attention. And so I don't know, in my opinion, you having the awareness to bring that up with your staff and keep that within your own, like in the front of your mind, I think it's impressive.
Thank you.
There's the humility right there. Not going to pat yourself on the back at all. No, that's good. All right, I'm going to use the buzzword culture. It's thrown around a lot. And if you're a college coach and you say the word culture, you're going to wind up in a meme or a video where the coaches talk about culture. But it is important. And those coaches that you mentioned, the ones in this list, I mean, whether or not they use that word, they're building that thing every day. How does it drive performance in your program?
Yeah, like you said, everybody uses the word culture, so you hear it so much. I mean, I see it on shirts and all that kind of stuff now. But to me, it's the baseline. It's the most important thing about your program. Obviously, you can get really good players. You can have high level talent, but if you don't have a good culture in your program, it's gonna be hard to win championships and win at the highest level. But to me, like nobody, the coaches I worked for, they weren't throwing the word around culture,
Right.
but you just know what it is, just the behaviors that you allow. It's what you, as a coach, what you allow your players to do, what your staff allows the players to do when you're not around. And to me, it's a million little things. It could be you got a guy in the corner who's wide open for a three. Your point guard drives in there, doesn't pass it to him, and turns the ball over. Does that guy in the corner who didn't get the ball, does he drop his shoulders, jog back on defense, or does he sprint back on defense and get a chase down block? So I'm like, to me, it's that that is a perfect example of a good culture when a teammate takes a charge, or you got two or three, four guys running over there to help him up. When a guy checks out of the game, does he go shake everybody's hand on the bench? Body language. There's a ton of that type of stuff that goes into culture, and to me, it's got to be everybody's a. Obviously, the head coach is in charge of it, but you've got to have everybody on board from the worst player on the team, or not necessarily worst, but guy that's not playing, to the best player, to the assistants. Everybody's got to be bought in on knowing the expectations and just the behavior of kind of winning players and winning programs. And like I said, there's a million things on keeping the locker room clean. When you get home at 2 or 3 a.m. from a bus trip, the guys clean up trash on the bus, because you might think some of that stuff doesn't matter. Some of that stuff matter when you got to get a stop. If you let guys slide on stuff early, then they can't do the hard things if they're not built the right way. Outside of basketball, to just little things like keeping the locker, being disciplined enough to keep your locker clean.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be disciplined enough to sprint to help, to be there in a big game when you need it. So to me, you can't really turn culture off on and off when you need to. It's something that it's everybody in your program's got to be bought into knowing the expectations of, hey, we're going to be 5 minutes early. We're going to be dressed the right way. We're not going to have our phones in the film room. There's a ton of things. I think you got to address it early. You can't let stuff slip,
Yep.
especially with a new team. And then just kind of, if you get everything tight early, then everybody on the team knows in January, February, like, hey man, you don't have your phone in the film room. We're here to get better. Coach isn't going to be in there long, but we're going to get to the point and get what we need to get accomplished.
Coach Aker at Oklahoma Baptist had a great point. He said the little things are the big things. I think when you look at culture as all of those little things, when with this list of questions, sometimes I wonder like how I would answer them if somebody was to ask me about like what's your culture of faith? How do you put in your culture of faith? And I would struggle to really give an easier, quick answer just to these three or four things. And I think about Ted Lasso season 3. Seasons 1 and 2 were gold. Season 3, in my opinion, they kind of went off the rails. But there is, in the last couple episodes, there's a great moment where the reporter, who's kind of been always at odds early on with Ted Lasso and then comes on board with him, he says, you know what? The reason we're going to be successful is because of the thousands and thousands of little things that you've been doing the last few years. So like in your program at our school, what is the culture? It's 1,000 little things. And I think if you try to make it just an acronym, one big thing, something that just fits on a t-shirt, nothing wrong with that, with t-shirts that have good slogans on them, but it does need to be just thousands of little tiny conversations and activities and mantras and ways that we live, ways that we act and breathe that make up a culture. So I love that when you said that, it immediately made me think of Ted Lasso and then Coach Aker. Little things are the big things.
I've seen some Porter Mosier. There's a lot of schools that have like a culture wall, and I think it's been cool when they may have like a brick wall, and they put a kind of a slogan or like little tag words that are in their culture, like huddle up on free throws. UNC, I've seen UNC point, like when somebody gives you an assist,
Yeah.
you point at them going down the court, and that it's called a culture wall. I'd like to do that here, but I know for sure Porter Moser at Oklahoma did it, and it's got all their, it's kind of got a ton of their culture words and taglines and stuff like that. I think's cool, and just guys seeing it and it comes back in their mind.
Yeah. Yeah. I think as each year goes, as you add more to it, because I think a question I had for you is good. And so maybe you can think about this is you mentioned when you have a new team. Well, now the college landscape is almost always a new team. At the junior college with only 2 years, like you're almost always dealing with new teams. So my question is going to be, is that how much more difficult is it now to create the culture than maybe 5-10 years ago? So think about that. But then to the wall, I think it'd be a really cool idea that as that season progresses and your culture grows, because I don't think it's just something you can set in one day and then, hey guys, don't you remember we talked about culture 4 months ago? It's something that continues to grow and you add and sometimes take away from.
Right.
And that it would be interesting to see how they do that wall. If they scrub it every year, how much it carries over from season to season. But for you, new team, how difficult is it now without those players that have maybe been around for a while as like, torch bearers to the culture to carry it on? How's that?
Yeah, that's actually, I was just getting ready to say the kind of the torch bearers. I had one returner off my previous team that he was on a really good team that won 25 games, and he was the one returner, and it's the best way to me carry your culture is have guys that have been a part of winning and been a part of you guys doing things the right way. So that way, when you're not out to practice yet, you can say, "Hey, fellas, like you're gonna have your jersey tucked in. We're stretching it at 3 o'clock when practice gets started. Just let you know, like, hey, that's not gonna fly with coach." Versus you having to address everything. You can have, I think, player-led teams are the best teams where you're not having to police every single thing all year. If you got those leaders on the team that know what you want, know the expectation, that know the standards, that's when you got really good teams. Because as a coach, at your staff, you can't be around when they're in the dorms and they're upset they're not playing, things like that. And you got leaders of the team and guys that help those guys get rewired the right way, that are still bought into winning, still bought into the culture.
Are you ready to level up your team skill development? Well, Bology is here to support you in driving accountability and skill development. The Bology app is more than just tracking. It's a resource for enhancing skills, knowledge, and mindset across your program. Join coaches all across the country using Bology to simplify training and empower your athletes. Let's build consistency, accountability, and skill development together.
Do you have an activity or anything like, you hear just an example of teams going to like a rope course or something like that? You got anything that you do maybe early on in the year, especially with so many new personalities, new bodies, that you do that maybe establishes or helps establish or fast forward culture a little bit?
So when I was at Texas Tech with Coach Beard, we went on a team retreat, and it was 2 or 3 days. I think we ended up going somewhere in the canyons up here in West Texas somewhere, and we stayed the night. We did a ton of that type of stuff early, and it's been the best like team building thing I've ever been a part of. Here at the JUCO level, we don't always have the funding to do so. I'd do it tomorrow if we could, but it was really good. We did like you said, a ropes course. We did you get to know teammates, some of that type of stuff early. As far as here, we start our season pretty early with jamborees and scrimmages in October. So you get kind of thrown into the fire early in terms of knowing who your teammates are, going through adversity with them early. So I think that's something in JUCO where you're going to end up, we have our 30-game regular season, but you go to those jamborees in October every weekend, and you're going to get 15 games there that don't count on your record, but you're being thrown into the fire on knowing what your team needs to get better at, knowing this guy's going to compete with me, all of that kind of stuff early in terms of junior college. And then a lot of junior college towns are smaller, so players get to spend a lot more. There's not a ton to do out in Clarendon.
Not a lot of distractions out there.
Yeah, outside of basketball, they're going to be up in the dorms hanging out. They're going to be in the gym together. So they really get to build a good relationship with each other early, just because there's not a lot of distractions here. And I think that's a ton ton of JUCO towns are that way. You can't really get caught up in going to the beach or going to nightclubs and doing a ton of the stuff like that. It's really getting to know your teammates and building those relationships and getting better at basketball.
To your point, I think going to a retreat and doing things like that does cost money. Like, there's obviously some greatness there. And like you, I wish we could do those things as well, but our budget's pretty small. I'm constantly trying to find or think of, goes back to maybe what we talked about with those thousands of little things, ways that for free, with just time, that we can enhance our togetherness, our culture, help the guys to get to know each other better. And if you don't mind, I'd like to share one quick thing is we do an IUE talk. And I got this from TJ Rosine at Emmanuel. And so we do it probably, I like to do it. I do it every week if I could, but every 3 or 4 weeks throughout the season. But group together in a circle, start with anybody, but there's 3 things that every player has to discuss. The first is the I, something that they see in themselves that they're proud of. Because I don't know, I don't know if you were the same way, but I think sometimes as a player, even as a coach, if I was to say, what are some things you suck at or you're not pretty good at right now, that'd be easy. Like, I could fill that out real quick. But to actually say something that, I've been working in this area in my life or with my game, and I've seen improvement, I'm proud of it. So they say a why or an I first, and then it's a you. So they kind of scan the room and they find one of their teammates that they have seen improvement in them. There's something that their teammate has done that's really, like, maybe with their communication, maybe with their level of hustle, maybe they've stayed after a lot and to work on their shot, and now they're starting to knock it down. And so there's a couple things with the you that I really like as a coach. One is to get the players to zoom out from themselves and to really start to watch or think about their teammates. But then I also like to hear what my players are thinking about each other, like what Johnny sees in Billy. That may be something that I needed to know or needed to hear, or I could pay attention to. And then the last one is a we, and it's a way that player sees our team growing, coming together. Obviously they are geared toward positive things, but those 3 things around the circle, and then assistant coaches and myself in it as well. Golly, I don't care what our record is, how we've been playing. We always seem to feel pretty good about the path that we're on as a team. And I believe that that's a way for us to enhance our culture. Didn't cost anything.
Right. No, I like that. That's actually, I think we did something very similar at the retreat, something like that. And that's something I'll probably add to my bag to run with one of my teams.
TJ Rosine, man, he's one of the best, in my opinion, one of the best culture guys. He's a big PGC guy, and borrowed that from him. I'd love to hear, okay, now getting more to maybe the program and basketball side of things. What's one thing that makes your program unique or different?
In terms of uniqueness, I think probably my relationship with the players as a head coach. I think that's something very important. I know there's some coaches out there that want to show up right before practice, coach the team, and the assistant coaches are the ones that kind of have the relationship, knowing what's going on. Love watching film with guys, kind of ask what they think. I want to hear their opinion on the play before I go telling them what they did wrong or what they did good, and kind of see their point of view. Hey, why'd you take this shot? What did you think about this play? Why weren't you here? Versus like just telling them what they're supposed to do. So I think relationship with players is important. There's definitely going to be schools where in the recruiting process, you can have nice facilities, you can have more NIL at places, not necessarily the JUCO level, but I think at the end of the day, players really want a good relationship with the head coach, knowing that you trust them, being on the same page. Like, I think it's important for everybody on the team to know what the head coach thinks is a good shot. I want everybody to know our philosophy versus, hey, I'm open, I need to shoot this. So I think individual film is important, individual workouts. I know some head coaches are more of a team practice. Obviously, that's important, but I think working out with players individually on what they need to get better at and trying to help them get better at it. I saw Brad Stevens had in the article that when a player was struggling, he would go work out with them individually and then try to help them get on track. So I think no matter what school I'm at, I think that's something I'd like to carry wherever I go. Is just having that individualized relationship, caring about what's going on in their lives, with their family, more than just, hey, I'm your coach. I'm here to coach you and put in plays for you and tell you what to do on the defensive end. Just have that, because I think you can coach them harder when you have that relationship, but you can also, every single kid's different. You just can't have a cookie cutter way on how to coach kids. I think the more you have that relationship, knowing what's going on in their life, the more you can bring out of them, making them a better player.
Mm. Going to watching film, is it you have clips that you've already chosen for that guy, or do you watch larger chunks of time, maybe a little bit of both the time, but what do you typically like to do?
I like to not waste times or kind of bore them. I like to have the clips already ready. We film every practice. All of our games are filmed. So Synergy breaks them down for us. So by the next day, it's broken down. But even our practice, I'm going to go home and watch it, and I can cut up. Sometimes I might show them some practice film of somebody else who's doing things the wrong way or right way. On, hey, this is how you're supposed to get over this screen, or hey, this is the right read off this ball screen, things like that. But I think it's a way to get them in your office, get them communicating with you, knowing what they like offensively too. That's something Coach Beard did really well, in my opinion, too. He'd always ask players, if this is the last second shot, then where do you feel most comfortable getting? Where do you like the ball? Where do you think your game is to score? That way you may think this is what the guy likes to shoot it at, but just getting them in comfortable spots where they feel confident scoring, something I like to do as well.
You mentioned basically using the question method when you're sitting with those players, and at what point did you start doing that? Have you always done it? And I asked that because early on in my coaching career and career when I was younger, it was, let me just tell you exactly what I see. You take it as coaching and then go. But then learning along the way that if I can help players come to those conclusions themselves, that one, they'll have more ownership, feel more ownership in their game, in the decision making, and actually help them to learn better than me just telling them something. Where did you get that from, or have you always had it?
Honestly, I got some of my roles at the Division I level was a lot of film-based stuff. So I might have been the guy on the laptop running the clips while Mark Adams, some of those guys were doing the coaching with the players. So I got to kind of soak up a lot of that kind of stuff from a ton of those. I don't know if there's one coach I got it from.
That's fair. Yeah.
But just being in 400 or 500 different film sessions, whether it's with the team, whether it's with an individual player, whether it's with 2 or 3 players, I got kind of a PhD from guys who are coaches at high levels on how to run those type of things. And then to me, trial and error, like this is my 4th year as a head coach here. So that's something as being a head coach, you figure out what works, what doesn't work, and kind of, I'm not just going to copy everything Coach White does or copy everything Chris Beard does or Coach May. I think just kind of picking things from each one of those guys that fits me personally, kind of having my own style. Obviously, they all win at a high level doing it their way. I think just picking little things here and there that fit me and fit my current job is the best way to do it.
I think it's a great reminder for guys that are in assistant roles, because obviously, as a varsity assistant or an assistant coach in college, you're sitting there the whole time thinking about what it would be like if it was your program. But while you're thinking about that, also too, be open to learning what that head coach is doing and what style with your personality can work for you. One thing I was, while you were talking there, I thought about a lady named Shawnee Harley. She was an Olympic coach in Canada on the women's side for 20 years. And then it has her own business now. It's called Winning Matters. But she talked about, I just watched her do a free 1 hour webinar, and she had these questions. And your question method made me think of, like, one, I imagine that players enjoy getting to be asked what they think about something rather than just told. But it made me think of, like, what are some other questions that I probably need to ask my guys? And she called these gold medal questions. And so here are 4 things. I want to experiment with this, but I'd love to hear what you think. So Gold medal questions, how can I help you as the player show up as your greatest self? And so 4 questions. One is, what do you want me to stop saying to you? What would you like for me to start saying to you? What would you like for me to do more of? And what would you like for me to do less of? I'm not saying that we can fit that into every film session, but that right there with getting to know our players and how they learn and how they want to be coached. Coach, what are your thoughts on those questions?
I think that's definitely interesting. I'd like to
Start saying, do more of, do less of.
Right.
Mm.
You might hear a guy, hey coach, quit yelling at me to rebound. Hey, I'm not going to do that. So
No, Coach, can I just say something? I was on the webinar. And they had a question and answer time at the end. And I said, hey, love those questions. What if what they don't want me to say is the one thing that they need for me to say? Coach, like exactly what she thought right there is, I'm not going to stop saying the thing that they need to hear. Her response was, how do you know that you're right? Okay. All right. Like, I don't want to keep going down that rabbit hole, but like, I don't know. I agree with you.
Yeah, no, those are, I like those a lot. I might add those as well.
It's all borrowing, Coach. That's all we do.
Kids nowadays, they want to text and be on the phone. The more you can get them in your office, or just, it doesn't have to be in an office setting. You can take them out to lunch, do different things like that, and just get to more they can get to communicating and talking with you. I think the better you can coach them.
It all goes back to the first thing we talked about with your daily habits is organization and having these things planned out, because the odds of us just randomly throughout the course of a day finding time to meet with players, they just happen to walk into the office. I happen to walk to the gym and we don't either of us have nothing to do. That's not going to happen. So we have to organize these things. Tyron Lee at Wakeland High School, Frisco Wakeland, had a great activity that I borrowed. He calls them 10-minute meetings, and they schedule them out. And the first 5 minutes, he asks them questions. The second 5 minutes, they ask him any questions. Nothing's off limits, but it's only 10 minutes. And I've been doing that for a couple of years now here. If those kids aren't prepared, 5 minutes feels like an eternity for them just sitting there. But I've also been really impressed with some of the questions, like, this is your time to talk about your role. This is your time to talk about things that maybe have been bothering you, or it could be things outside. But Coach, if we're not organized and if we don't schedule it, the odds of it happening by chance are small.
Yes, I agree.
Standards and pillars. Coach, we're going to use those words instead of culture. But what are some of the standards and pillars of your program?
One I did, I put it on a shirt this year. I got it from the Bradley staff, and it's like you said, culture is really up. You can't just define it in 2 or 3 words, but I put on a shirt, compete, defend, and rebound, because that's something I just wanted us to do every game. That's something you can control, in my opinion. And I think they did some stuff like CDR, like just a quick, easy way to say it, because making shots, playing well on offense, there's going to be games where you don't play well, but if you compete and you defend and you rebound, you're going to put yourself with a chance to win every game. You might not win every game, but if you're just an offensive team, and I love offensive. Yeah, like we were talking about earlier, I was watching the stuff that South Florida run. That stuff I try to spend time watching more, stealing this, stealing that. But I think if you have a defensive and a rebounding mindset, or that's something that your non-negotiables, we're going to do that every night. We're going to compete on both ends of the floor, and then we're going to take the defensive end serious, and then we're going to rebound. And you just put yourself in a position every single night to win the game. So that's why I got some signs up in the locker room that say that too. We got one that says compete, one that says defend, and the other one that says rebound. Another one I know everybody uses the word toughness, but it's like, to me, it's just like a really broad word. Like you gotta, to me, break it down into like basketball terms. Like, what does a tough player do? Like, tough players don't get screened. Like, tough players get 50-50 balls. Like, when the ball's on the floor, tough players, the first one to the floor. Tough guys get rebounds. They don't tip it. That stuff like that is another word. Like, I know everybody uses culture and tough, but compete, defend, and rebound it's what I use with this year's team, and I really like it.
How did you see your guys buy into that? Because I like the simplicity of it, and those are 3 things that I mean, if you look, I would imagine if I look through your practice plans or your scouting reports, I would imagine they revolve around those three things. You're hitting those three things quite a bit. Whatever culture, standards, pillars you say you have, we should be able to see it, right, through the decisions that you're making as a head coach with your practice plans, how your guys are competing, like you said. But how did they handle or how did they adapt it?
I think it's like players like the offensive end, so it's easy. Like if you're a guy that comes in and you just talk about offensive all the time, then I think players think it's okay or acceptable. The more you preach defense, the more you talk about how we're going to be a top defensive team, the more you talk about we're going to out rebound our opponents. The more they get that ingrained in their mind on, hey, this is what it takes to win. And so the more they hear it, I think the more emphasizing it is the best way to put it. And like you said, I think the drills you start out practice with have a lot to do of what your identity is as a coach and what your identity is of that team. If you start off practice with the offense for an hour and a half and you finish, hey, we're going to do 30 minutes of defense.
Says something.
I bet I know what your team's going to be like. And there's a million different ways to win a basketball game. So I'm not saying that offense isn't important. But I think your team's going to be what you emphasize as a coach. And so with this team, I thought we had some talented individual offensive players, but if I could hit them every day with we're going to defend, rebound, and compete, I thought that gave us a really good chance to win every game.
Coach, that's a really good point. And I don't think I've ever thought about the link between having a defensive emphasis to practices, to culture, and winning. How you said too, if you only talk about offense, it made me immediately think back to early, like 2015, 2016 here at Faith. We became known for just shooting the three a lot. So averaging 35 to 45 attempts a game. And at the high school level, a 32-minute game without a shot clock, like that's a pretty good clip. And then trying to make a certain amount. But it all became about that. And if like we were following kind of the Grinnell system a little bit, which they have 5 game goals, but those game goals are really all about offensive pace and attempts and this and that. Without realizing it, Coach, I think winning was devalued. It became more about how many points did we score, how many threes did we make. For some kids, that was okay. But then the more competitive ones, I started to feel some resentment. And one, his name was Keith Church, he even asked me, like, does winning matter? Or are we just trying to, like, score a lot of points?
Yeah.
Wow. Like, one ballsy question, but he was right. Over the years, having a better balance has allowed more competition that is, to me, it is tied to those 3 words that you said, but then also I think with winning. So it's interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah. And I think at the end of you could be a offense. We're trying to score 120 and we're trying to score a bunch of points. We're trying to do all that. But at the end of the day, there's going to be games where it's the last 2 minutes and you got to get a stop to win. It's always going to come down to getting a stop and then getting the rebound to win the game. I know I put on a shirt to compete, defend, and rebound, and we were number 1 in the region in points per game this year. So we're
Coach, you did it all. You did it all, man.
That's what I was going to say. But the end of the day, what ended our season, 98-98, other teams ball, and we had to foul on the guy to end our season. So we scored 98 points to win, but if we're a little bit better on that end. I still think when you want to win, especially when at the highest level, you've got to be able to get stops when it matters. You got to be able to get rebounds when it matters to really win.
And you got to be able to win in different ways. Like you can't just have, this is our one key, one path to victory. Because what if you play somebody that their personnel, their scheme, it's a perfect storm against what you do. And that came from Tom Inman, legendary Plano coach. When I was at McKinney High with Wes Watson, we were about to play South Oak Cliff in playoffs. So we were running and gunning with Wes Watson and really shooting the three a lot. But Tom had that point, like, guys, are you prepared to win in the 40s or 50s? We hadn't been in there all year long, But his point was like, are you prepared to do whatever it takes to win that game? And do you have the capability to win differently? I think that's something that coaches that would need to ask themselves, like, are you planning on a best case scenario? If, like Grinnell, if we get these 5 things done, we win 90-70. Or what if it doesn't go that way? Are you prepared for that?
Right. Right. Especially in a tournament setting, like you got to be prepared. Hey, your best player gets in foul trouble. You got to be able to win, like you said, different ways.
Last question, Coach, before the speed round. With compete, defend, and rebound as your pillars, how do analytics play? What role do they play with your coaching style?
Yeah. Two, I love the analytics stuff too. I don't have a huge staff here to kind of keep track of a ton of it in the game, but at some point I'd like to get to the point where we're keeping some of that stuff in the game. But offensive rebound percentage is a huge one in my opinion, and same thing as turnover percentage.
Where do you like your offensive rebound percentage to be?
So I'd like 33% is what I'd like to get 1 out of 3 of our misses.
Yeah.
Is what I know some people look at the box score and you see the amount of turnovers and you just look at it, hey, we need to be 12 or less, or same thing with offensive rebounds. I want to get 10 or more. But a lot of it depends on the possessions in the game, the pace of the game.
Yeah, that's why percentage is so important.
Right. And my team this year, we were 80, 82 possessions a game, and my team the year before we were closer to 60. So like you can't just look at the box score and see a number. It's a lot more of the percentage. And then, like I said, that 1 out of 3 misses was what I really like to get for our team here. And then as far as turnover percentage, I like it for 15% or less. I think both if we're doing both of those, we're going to give ourselves a chance to win a lot of games.
How many are you sending to get that offensive rebound percentage up?
So, and this would be we'd be here all day if I was talked about this, but there's it's called tagging up, where you kind of send 5 guys to the glass, but none of your guys overrun their defender. You send 5 and you pick up the guy that blocks you out, and it's a transition defense advantage. But we did it early, probably the first 4 or 5 games. We would send 5 to the glass, and we were getting it was 48% one game, 38%, 42. So we were getting a ton of offensive rebounds early. And then I think teams kind of started to figure out, so we kind of tailored it, and it was more personnel based. Like if you're a good offensive rebounder, I'll let you go. So some lineups it'd be 4, some lineups it'd be 2. But
how does the tagging up? I'm curious. How does the tagging up? I get the defensive side to it. Like if you want to turn around and full court press, like you're right there. How does it lead to more offensive rebounds?
So if you send everybody to the high side, and so when you try to drive them under the goal and you get all the long rebounds.
Okay.
It is really how you do it. There's the head coach at Charlotte's the one who kind of came up with it. He's got a couple things on YouTube you can kind of see it. And then there's 3 or 4 Division I teams that did it this year, and I know they were high on offensive rebound percentage. I kind of came across it a little bit too close to the start of our regular season. I'd like to do a little bit better job preparing our guys. So the best thing I thought it did for us was it kind of taught our guys how to offensive rebound.
I kind of see that.
Kind of teaches them how to try to drive people under the goal, teach them how to go to the high side, and that way you don't get beat on leak outs. Because if you never overrun your man, then nobody can ever beat you down the court. Like so, I know Coach Gillespie's big on not giving up transition buckets, so I think that's another big thing. We were talking about pillars of the program.
Yeah.
If you can be a good transition defensive team, and make them score on your set defense, then I think it gives yourself a big chance to win as well.
So high side, but not trying to actually beat them to get around.
Yeah, kind of you try to drive them like if you're a big, you're trying to get on the high side, drive them underneath the basket, and you get it and lay it in. And say you're in the corner, you're crashing the glass, but you're running to the high side, so you get all the long rebounds. Because I know a lot of teams that'll send 5 guys, you just run to the rim and then it long rebound, then you give up a layup.
Yeah.
Kind of a method to the madness to a lot of it.
Anything else with the analytics?
Just that offense rebound, but turnover percentage to me is really, really important too. Because when you turn the ball over, you're not able to get your defense set. So you're going to get
Yeah.
easy points, and then the other team's getting more possessions than you. The more you turn it over.
What are some things that you're doing to stress your players not turning it over? Because it is something that, like, I think we all talk about with our teams, and hope they understand. But like, even watch Baylor against Clemson, I think 9 or 10 turnovers in the first half. It's obviously at that level. It's not like they haven't heard, like, guys, listen, take care of the ball.
Right.
But easier said than done. What are some things you're doing to emphasize that?
I think being prepared for having your guys prepared for what they run on the defensive end is important. Like, if you come into the game and they hard edge everything, and you haven't been working on in practice, I think your guards are more likely to turn it over. If you throw it into the post and they're a team that traps the post, and something you haven't worked on and had them prepared, is a big reason why. And then just having guys used to playing with one another, I think is something important too. Like, knowing guys who cut well, knowing your personnel, getting guys the ball where they need to get it, getting the right players, the right shots, and the right spots is something that's important as well. I think holding guys accountable early in the season on taking good shots and turning the ball over, in terms of like taking them out of the game, and then showing them on film. When I was at Texas Tech, after every game, we would watch the turnovers. So you may make a turnover, but the main thing, you don't want to make the guy making the same season goes on. You want to be able to guys learning from those turnovers in the past. It's something big. Like I said, watching film is something too. Hey, why did you try to fit this pass in there? Kind of emphasizing guys to make simple plays instead of trying to make home run plays. That's a verbiage we use a lot. Just simple wins. Just taking the easy.
That's that culture wall right there. Simple wins.
Simple wins, exactly. Might need that on shirt too.
You gotta get that started, and then I want you to send me a picture, because I think it's a cool idea. Building that chemistry with your team, no doubt. I think that does directly relate to turnovers, that percentage. In practice, do you typically have your starters together running through games throughout, or do you split up your guys to have more of even runs?
So I've done a little bit of both. Like, I've done, like you said, we're going to start our first 5 out, and we're going to run through plays, and then kind of through trial and error of being a head coach now, I've seen stuff that works and stuff that doesn't. And mainly with inbound plays, is like, we'll go over them all, and it's like, here's the first 5, here's the second 5, and the guy who's in the second 5 plays the 3 and the 4. But when he was with that group, he did all in the 4, and then in the game now he's in the 3, and he didn't practice any at the 3, and it's just happened to be because of foul trouble that game. So I've learned to, like, mix it up a ton is really the best way to do it. I've gotten to a point kind of in shoot around the day of, I might take 5 guys on one end, have the other 5 shooting. We're going to go over plays, and then get a new 5 instead of having guys sit on the baseline and just watch while everybody's going through plays. You kind of
get a good point,
and can kind of keep guys engaged.
And like you said at one point, like, we don't want to waste time. We don't want to waste time with film. We don't want to waste time with our conversations. I think that's a golden nugget. That's a small thing that you can save some time every practice by focusing on the guys you need to in that moment, skill work with the others, big flip. I think that's a good one.
Yeah, and it's something just trial and error. Like, you get frustrated when we didn't went over these plays. How do you not know it? It's like, well, this guy wasn't in foul trouble in practice. So at the end of the day, I think it was my fault. Can't put it on the players. If somebody didn't know the play, it's the end of the day, it's the coach's fault.
Coaches, the JAMODI podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here.
Coach, the speed round. These are going to be quick questions. That'll just help us to get to know you a little bit better. You ready?
Yep, sounds good.
Greatest shooter of all time.
Reggie Miller.
Good one. Okay, as a coach, best gym you've ever coached in?
Best gym. Uh, it was pretty cool going to Allen Fieldhouse when I was at Texas Tech. Just the history. I really like going to West Virginia. The Coliseum there was a sold out game. It was a really good atmosphere. Um, Oklahoma State Gallagher-Iba Arena was cool. That had a good crowd today when I was there. All the stuff in the Big 12 where everybody knows about those. In terms of, I like our home court here at Clarendon. It's a really good home court advantage. I think we lost one home game the last 2 years. It's not quite the spectacle of the Big 12 and stuff like that, but
I think you create a cool environment, though. And
our gym, really good home court. We got good crowds here, so that I like our current gym we have here at Clarendon right now.
Best basketball movie of all time.
Who's yours?
Nice. Texting or talking?
I think you got to do both. I think there's a time and place for both.
That's a fair answer. Yeah. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
I'm gonna go shot clock. Me and my dad.
Go ahead.
My dad were talking about this honestly yesterday.
Yeah.
Because I think just there's so much there's so many. I think coaching comes into play a lot. To me, it's just there's kind of clear cut stuff at the college level with a shot clock. Hey, there's no shot clock. We foul, don't foul. There's a lot of more strategy. I think fans would like shot clock better, but I think without being able to pick your players, sometimes where the running time and stuff like that gives teams with less talent a chance to win.
No doubt.
So me personally, as a college coach going to watch games, I'd like to see it. As a fan, I would like to see it, but I could see how some coaches would not want it as well.
And that, I think it's the right way to say it. Like, there's obviously some coaches that would need that as an advantage to stay in a game. But then to your point too, as a fan, or I got to imagine as a college coach that's used to that style and that being there, to for it not to be there and to see these minute and a half possessions, that's got to be interesting for you.
To me, it's I'd be, if I was a defensive minded guy, you can have your guys in the perfect position playing hard for a minute. And if they run their offense well, eventually it's going to break down. And we would have got a shot clock violation twice.
Yeah.
So,
you're up 3 on defense with 5 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
We were fouling. We had that exact scenario this year where we were up 3 and did not foul. And we went in overtime. We were still able to win. But then next practice, that was the first thing we went over. Hey, if this happens again, we will be fouling.
It happened. We're going to learn from this. We're going to move on. Never again.
Yes. But I think you better do a good job preparing your team, because there's so many scenarios where you foul too early. They end up getting a shot off and they make it, and then you foul, and then you end up losing the game.
Or especially at the high school level, fouling poorly, like too aggressive. You get an intentional or something just because they hear foul, they got to shove. Like, practicing how you do that is important.
Mm-hmm. And there's so many, like, if they could just do it whenever the coach yells red on the sideline, but sometimes it takes a delay or you foul too early, and then there's a ton of scenarios. But we were up 3 and we gave a 3 this year, so I'm a firm believer in foul from now on.
What book would you give someone?
I like Toughness by Jay Billis. I think it's a classic. I think a lot of coaches have read it, but it is a good one.
Last one, Coach. In basketball, who is the GOAT?
Who's the GOAT? Player. I'm going to go Michael Jordan.
Good for you, man. Good for you. Parents raised you right. That's good. What about your players? How do you think they would answer that?
I think most of them would say LeBron, just because they've gotten to see all of LeBron's career. There's not as much, they don't get to see as much. But I bet after The Last Dance,
no doubt,
Last Dance might have swayed some people over.
If you ever have a player that's like, LeBron's the best, hey, listen, we're going to sit down and watch 10 hours of this documentary, and then your mind will be changed. Coach, this was awesome. Really enjoyed getting to learn more about you. And thank you for being so transparent and about the recruiting stuff. And because as a high school coach, it's just always fascinated just to hear, like, what, from your perspective, what it's like. But then it was also so much fun to get to learn more about your program and how you connect with players. Just really appreciated the time.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. If you ever need anything, just let me know.
To your point, if coaches wanted to learn more, wanted to come out to a practice or learn more about CDR, what's a good way for them to get in touch with you?
Honestly, like I don't know if I put my cell phone on here, but
You don't have to do that, but if it's your emails online or on Twitter, yeah, go ahead.
Twitter, email, any of that kind of Facebook, you can get a hold of me in any way possible, and I'll end up giving you my cell phone, stuff like that. I like to talk ball, like to talk recruiting, really any of that stuff.
Awesome. Well, Coach, thank you so much for your time.
Yes, sir. If you need anything else, just let me know.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.